Duolingo. Holy cow. It's down 80% off of its highs. It's already up into 30% from its bottoms, down under 90 bucks a share. Got a potential for going 10x. I'll show you that in the model, but it is potential, but it's still there. Again, not financial advice, but let's get into it. So first off, they were up over $550. Oh my goodness. And then they dropped all the way down. What happened? You don't usually get that. So first off, they're a high growth company. So we got high growth. And then, so what happens? Let's bring it back all the way to 2023, right? So they're growing, they're growing, they're growing. Then they decide, hey, we've been growing well, let's monetize some more. So you get growth and monetization. So you grow, 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 grow. Then you buckle, right? You over monetize and you don't grow enough. They also had big booms from 2024 into 2025 from TikTok and all these different ones, right? A ton of marketing that was kind of free for them, free expenses, right? They were blowing up all over the place on all those. And so that really kind of extra boomed it up and brought it up to that height. And then what causes it to drip? So first off, right, you had tons of growth in 2023, good growth in 2024. Then 2025 hits and they start to slow down. Revenue starts to slow down. There's a deceleration in the back half of the year. I mean, that's just, oh man, that's rough. But there's still potential and they're still growing. And they got a big change with the company's management, what they're wanting to do, not their actual management team, but what the management's wanting to do. And it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a rocky road. It's going to be crazy. So the biggest concerns right now at the company is first off the growth and the profitability, right? How well can they grow? They're trying to double their amount of users. That's a crazy expectation. Within 3 years, they're trying to do that. So that's super hard. So how are they going to do that? Is that possible? There's a lot of concern there. Then profitability, right? Just because they have doubled the amount of users, a lot of those users are free, right? Only 10% are getting monetized right now. So how well can they monetize on top of that? And then, of course, the third concern is AI. How much is AI going to be able to take over Duolingo? Is it going to, or is somebody going to create a new app or something like that? How well can that? So all three of those fear factors are really digging into Duolingo right now. And then I think the AI is probably the biggest one too right now because we're in this big giant AI boom, right? So you had that big giant jump, and now everyone's really concerned: is AI going to take over, right? So you're seeing a lot of these companies within this sector, within other sectors too, struggling right now. So it's interesting. Let's say the least. So I figured it was worth digging into. Obviously, this is my overview, so I like to take a little peek first and then get a little bit deeper into it before I go too far. First off, the 10K. So I guess before jumping into 10K, I should probably talk about the management team. So the management team, they've been in here forever. They're the founders. So you have to really think, okay, what's going in the mind right here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's going on in the mind? So I'm looking at, their mission, what their goals are, they're trying to increase the amount of users, right? So what's going on there? How are they doing that? What's their pull to the product, right? And now I do use Duolingo, right? I'm a consumer, and so I've been playing chess on there recently. It's been super fun, and that's been blowing up, right? They're now one of the biggest chess users in all the apps and stuff like that, and they're not even known for chess, right? They're known for learning languages. And so I think that's really interesting. And so I took a peek at that, and obviously you got to take a look at the numbers, take a look at all that, and just kind of decide what's going on with that. Earnings calls, I think the earnings calls were insanely important for this company. Obviously, always the earnings calls are important, but these ones I think it really mattered because I'm trying to figure out what the direction of management, where they're trying to go, right? What are they trying to do? So first off, they're trying to pretty much double their daily active users by the end of 2028. That's a big goal. Currently, they've been kind of hitting that, and so I'm not 100% on that, but I'm not 100% against it too. And I mean, you could see companies doing this doubling, but it's really going to come down to you know, how well they're able to market and how well they're able to get people to use it. Was that block, right? Was that back when we were in 23, 24 into 25, right? Was that all more of a trend, or is that, are people actually here to stay and to learn this language? And so that'll be something we'll have to see, play out over the next couple of years. They're also doing a large amount of increase in their research and development, and then marketing as well. And so how are they doing that? Are they going to be using that well? It's going to be a little bit of concern. And so that's why you're seeing a big giant, volatility, and then you see a giant drop, but is there potential for that gain as well? So it's kind of a high risk, high reward play, I think, in the way it'll play out. Another big thing. Now, I'm a long term investor, and so I see them wanting to kind of sacrifice that short term gain. Right? They don't care about today. They don't care about tomorrow. And this happens a lot with management teams that the founder is one a giant owner and two a founder of because their vision is more than just the money, right? So you kind of have that long term approach with them in general, anyways. And so I think that's very interesting. But again, people are scared about how well is the moat? How well is the AI going to affect that moat? Is there a good moat? And so how much can that play into it? So that's interesting as well. Another thing that I think is interesting to note is Asia. So Asia has an entirely like it's the fastest growing region, and so I think about Duolingo and I think about learning languages, right? And I guess I'll get into this more in the industry data, but you kind of have a company that like I'm an American, so obviously I see it in America, but learning different languages than just English is really not the most American thing ever, right? I mean, I know speak English. I don't know how to speak Spanish. I don't know how to speak German. Sure, I played a little bit on Duolingo, so I know a little bit, right? Hola, whatever. But you go to Europe, right? And these people here, they're using multiple. They're doing multiple different ones, right? I've been to Germany. I've talked to these people. They know German. They know French. They know English. They know Spanish, right? They can talk to they're multilingual. Asia too. And then also thinking one of the best ways for Duolingo, um, it's not necessarily people who are English learning other languages. It's other languages, right? People who know other languages trying to learn and master English, right? So that they're trying to get to learn English, whether that's so they can for business, whether that's hey, maybe I want to move to America or I'm moving to a company or country that mainly uses English, right? And so you kind of see that big giant jump. And so it's kind of like, okay, how much of that is really going to happen and play out? So that's always interesting. And they got the margins, and then I think the big thing here that they like to talk about, right? And I think some of this is trying to cover up for the concerns with the investors and all that, right? How much of this is actually a problem? How much of this can they actually achieve? And they like to bring up that it's 10% monetized, right? Only 10% of their customers are monetized, and you look at Spotify, and it's about around 50%. So like we have a ton of growth, and it's like, yeah, okay, there's possibility for that growth, but then also it's like what'll stop that growth? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's going to stop them from hitting that amount, and some of it is how much are people willing to pay, and then they've also been really trying to work on their free version, right? That's how they're getting the growth, is by focusing on that free version, right? So they're kind of sacrificing these gains in the short term for longer term growth, right? Longer term consumers, longer term daily active users, right? People that are constantly using the app, they're trying to go for that longer one. And there's a difference between people who use apps for free and people who will pay, whether that's through monetization, right? That's maybe me buying the cool little plushy bird, right? Or, actually trying to pay for a subscription. And so I think that's going to be very different. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out. So it'll be very interesting. Another thing to note with the management team. And now this is actually, first off, I love long-term, I love long-term investing. I like to go for the management teams that are really there to stay and that have been there forever. I love when the founders are in it, right? I think about Palantir, one of my best, stocks that I've ever bought. And you had a management team that was there from the start. They knew exactly what they were building. They built it out, and you just get a different vibe from those founders than you do from, just a management team that just kind of came in and stepped in. And so, they have a lot more care for it. But then also, you have a lot more vision, right? And so I think that's one of the things that's actually going to pull against their company in terms of profitability and in terms of, maximizing shareholder value, right? Is so they're really focusing on getting that 100, right? Their goal, I think, Lewis, his number one goal is to maximize users. It's not to maximize returns. He's pretty much stated this. And so it's like, okay, how much of this is going to be him trying to just get as many people, right? Awesome. Tons of people learning language, but in terms of getting a return for like, right, is this going to 10x my investment? Is it going to? I think you have to, and I think that's also been kind of a pullback on the stock too. Is okay, he has full control, right? They have full voting power, they have full ownership, they have all that. How much of that is actually going to be, you know, benefiting in terms of profiting? Another thing to note, he gets paid on the salary. Obviously, there's stock returns, so yeah, he's going to want the stock to do well. But his salary is not that high. And then look at how high the median employee is, 300,000. So I'm thinking, right? Okay, how is an AI group going to go and take over Duolingo? Because that's one of the biggest, right? That was one of the big three concerns that I had from the going. And also, how much is AI, right? How much is that going to stop them? If I have a team of people that are getting paid, the average employee is getting paid $300,000 and they're a software engineer. That's a pretty good employee, all right? If you look at Palantir, they're also up super high as well, right? So it's like, how well can somebody go against a team of 10 people who have all the data from their company over the past 10 years, right? How well can they go in and step against that? And so I think that's very interesting to think about. And then also to see that kind of humility in his earnings and also a little bit of concern because it's like, okay, how much does he care about that? Now, another thing to note here is how much the insiders have been purchasing, right? So I look at how much have they been buying up shares, how much have they been selling shares. And they have a lot more buying than they do have selling, right? So that's not necessarily, oh, well, time to go buy, right? But I always like to keep that in mind. Okay, what's the what's the team doing? What are the managers doing? What are they thinking? What is going on with them? Where are they at with this too? Are they in for a long run? Are they in for a short term? And so I think that's been interesting to take a peek at. Getting into industry data, I know I talked about this a little bit, so I'll just kind of talk on it a bit more. But really, how well can the industry grow? How well could they hit? How easy would it be to hit that 100 million users? Right, those daily active users. How well can that happen? How big could this be in 10 years, right? Because sure, they may be able to hit 100 by the end of 2028, but then if they can't continue to grow that afterwards, right? If nobody really cares, the stock's not going to do well. The company's not going to, like, they'll profit, but they're not going to continue growth. And then what you want in a stock, or at least what I want, is a continually growing one. So it's kind of like, how well will that happen? So that's it's a little bit of a concern there too. And so that's been interesting to play out. But tons of people trying to learn English, tons of people who know English trying to learn other ones, right? But was this also a trend too, right? I know America, it was a bit of a trend. Is that going to resurface? Are people going to care? Or is AI also going to step in, right? Another concern with the AI is it also going to step in and say, well, hold on, this could possibly pull more people away because they can just use AI to communicate, right? If I can have a conversation with somebody and I just have AI doing the whole thing, I don't need to learn language. But management team also said that people love to learn and they love to learn the language. Like they do it for a game. It's more of a game for them than it is an actual, hey, I want to use this to communicate with people. And so I think that'll also play out. And so that's always interesting as well. Getting into modeling again, it's not financial advice, but I like to run through things. So usually I go and see revenue and then I move down to expenses and kind of like an income statement would. And this one, I really wanted to play it off of the daily active users, right? So how much are the daily active users using it, right? How much is that kind of playback? And because that's really where the feed is going through. So I'm going from the daily active users and then down in, right? How much they're getting per daily active user, right? Are they going to be able to increase the amount of paid users or not? And so kind of just playing that down to kind of create my revenue and what I think could possibly happen. So kind of played that and then also playing out the futures based off of notes from the 10K and earnings call. So kind of had all that play out. And then sales and marketing expenses, general administrative, again, they're going to bump those up. So you got to keep an eye out for that too. And then interest income and all that. And then finally getting down to there's our thousand. Okay. There's a potential for this. However, things to note. One, this is assuming continual 28% growth year over year over year. So they hit the 100,000 or the 100 million. Well, then that's pretty much saying another double. So that's already a big jump, right? And so who knows how well they can hit that. And so that's why you see the base is even lower. And then also the bear is also concerned too. But that's not necessarily true based off of how it works. But really just saying that at the end of the day, right? This is kind of just how, how much can they grow? How much will they continue to grow? And then how much will they be able to profit off of their growth as well? And so I think that's why you're seeing a big giant pullback. There's a lot of concern, and that also brings in a possibility for an opportunity. And so, yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know. Let me know what you guys are thinking too. Is this a good buy in your opinion? Is this something you're staying away from? What are your thoughts with how it's going to infiltrate and hurt or help Duolingo? And so hopefully that's good. Leave a like. Please subscribe and let's have a good one. So see you guys.